Jimmy actually started here, and back in the back there, they used to get together, guys that had drug problems along with their alcohol problems would sometimes meet in a back room, and sometimes they would meet out here in this little patio in the back, and there was tables there, and they would talk and share their experience, strength, and hope about other things other than alcohol. And actually this is where Jimmy Kinnon and some of the old timers came back here, and they sat and they began to do some planning about Narcotics Anonymous, and guys in the like Cy Malis and some of the other fellows that I don't even know now, would people that had drug problems along with alcohol problems would get together and said, what are we going to do to help the guys that have drug problems, you know? And so this is a real intricate part of history, because this is from this point, then the Radford Street, Roads and Moore Park meeting developed, and then it began to grow. But the roots are right here in the North Hollywood Club, and especially with these blue tables. These are the roots that begin to grow and get nutrition and depth that add to the fruit of Narcotics Anonymous. It's developed some beautiful fruit at this time. But this is where the seedling was. This is where the roots developed, right here. Let's take a look through the at the main meeting hall, and this is where we went into the main meeting hall. Of course, it's a lot different now, but the stage was up there, and there were just 2 or 3 steps up to the stage, and there was chairs out here, and everybody would get up there and participate. And it was people that would volunteer to participate, and mostly the people that volunteered were people with time on the program. It was sort of an unwritten rule that newer people didn't get up. You came and you sat down and you listened to the older people. And then over here there was an office right in the corner that was occupied by Alabama, who was the secretary of the group here, and she seemed like she was always here and always willing to help, and seemed like she knew everybody, and if anybody that needed help in any way, she always had a connection to help the people. From that place, from here, we started going on Friday nights over to Roads and Moore Park to the mother group, and then Bill and Zona had a place over in Burbank, a little apartment where we used to go in an alley to get to their apartment, and so we had those 2 meetings, and the rest of the meetings were right here at the North Hollywood AA Club. And we went to meetings every single night. People would go from miles around, even if they had AA meetings in their area, to come here to the North Hollywood Club, because there was a certain comfort and understanding that was here, that they cared about everybody. They cared about people that had problems other than alcohol. And I think because of Jimmy Kinnon, that they realized that he was a guy that had put his life back together, and he had problems with drugs other than alcohol. This is where the kitchen was, where you'd always see Jimmy Kinnon at the bottom of the sink there washing cups and getting the new people like myself to give him a hand. But he was a guy that was a leader. He would start the washing process and then turn it over to the newcomers. Over here, as we progress this way, there was a wall right here between the sanctuary and this room. And this was our meeting room here. We had one large table that came from this end down to about where the fireplace is over here. And right here where this fireplace is. And so this is right here. We put the chairs around the table, and there was probably enough room for maybe 15 people. Boy, it's hard for me to talk about this because I can just picture myself sitting down, and especially at Christmas time, we had a Christmas party. The very first NA Christmas party was held here. And it wasn't a party, we didn't have gifts. What we had was food. It was a Christmas dinner. And I remember a couple guys were here, a guy named Frank. I think he was Frank was a chiropractor. Another guy by the name of Alton from Santa Monica. Of course, Jimmy was here at that time, and Tilly and I and our kids, and Ron and Kathy, and well, maybe Ron and Kathy, I'm not sure if they were here yet, no. So anyway, well, that was it, and this was our meeting hall, and the memories, and started right here, and NA actually started right here. Nobody stuck in Narcotics Anonymous from 1953 until 62. And in 62, I came, there were some people here that were coming and going, like Pepe and Penny, and I'm not sure, but I was on my way to Synanon in 62 when I came here, and Jim and Pepe went to Synanon in 62 and came out in December of 62 and came back to NA and never left again. And so 62 was, Jack Whaley was here, Phil Phillips, Slick Phil, Paul Stewart, who never quite made it, and but we lost contact with Phil Phillips. Bob McLaughlin was here, and as far as we know, he's still doing all right, but we've lost contact with him. Dick Herbst was the first guy I sponsored. I picked him up. Jimmy told me to go to Shire's Dryer. There was a guy there that needed some help, and I went and I seen Dick there in bed, and I invited him to NA, and he came and stayed, and as far as I know, he's still doing fine, but we haven't seen him for quite a few years. It was a happy year, and in a way it wasn't a happy year because we've seen some real hardships. We had another fellow that came on a Friday night meeting right here, and he came for about a month, and he had such hatred in his heart. He worked for a veterinarian, and he says, I can't stand this guy. He mistreats the animals, and he says, I just felt like killing this guy. And he didn't show up on a Friday night. On Saturday morning, we read the paper, and he did kill the veterinarian, stabbed him to death because he couldn't get over his resentment. That spurred a lot of us on to work the steps to realize it is a matter of life and death. A resentment can kill you. We hear that a lot, but it's the truth. It's the truth. We've seen it in 62. There was a lot of things that happened in 62 that made an impact on us. There was, Netta and her husband Tom came during that time. As far as I know, Netta's still doing well. Tom called me in the middle of the night one night and had taken a gun and shot. He's while his wife was in the bed, shot a dozen shots around the bed, and then he said he was going to kill his mother-in-law. And he called me at midnight. She called me, and I talked talked to him, and I went over, I said, just go outside, I'll pick you up. I said, go out there and sit outside on the curb, and sure enough, I went over and picked him up and tried to get him in the mental psychiatric hospital, and that didn't work for him. Anyway, so that was Netta's husband. As far as I know, Netta did well, and Netta was also went to the meeting on Rhodes and Moore, not on Rhodes and Moore Park, but at Bill and Zona's place down there in Burbank off of Magnolia. This was like a big meeting hall here where we had 15 people. It was meant a lot to us to have a large group, but then there was a small group, maybe 6 to 10 people at Bill and Zona's place. And then, like I say, it was sad. They stopped the meeting and Zona got murdered, and Bill went back to the penitentiary and said that he couldn't stay clean, and as much as he wanted to, and we never heard from him again. But that was some of the history about 1962. It was a great time for a lot of us, a sad time for others, very sad. For the families of people that died, you know. And then Scott Cronlin was here. Scott had been supposedly clean from 54 to 59, and then he started using again. And and Russ Counts was here. Russ was in and out, but then by the end of 62 or maybe 63, he got clean and stayed clean. And and Roger Cronlin, he was in and out, helped in 62 and helped start the ad center with Sylvia. Oh, and Sylvia was here in 62, and they went up to start the ad center in Berkeley. And so anyway, this is where it all started, right here at the Unitarian Church on Rhodes and Moore Park. And I thank God we met with this old guy, Marty, here, who had 40 years and was around narcotics, around the Radford Street at that time, and in the late 60s, and knew a lot of the people that we knew. And Radford Street was tremendously supportive of the NA program. Well, I just want to say a little prayer that the Lord will free me from any self-centeredness and ego and self-importance, and allow me to tell my story as truthfully as possible, and with the intention not to bring credit to myself, but to bring hope to the new people that are coming, and not only hope for them, but to talk about the basics, the way it used to be, the way people end up having the amount of time that I have, 40 or 30 years, or someplace in there, and how we did it. And I think basically is, I don't think we had a lot of desires for anything else besides staying clean. There wasn't a lot of advertisement about things and toys and pornography and all that kind of stuff that draws people now away from a spiritual way of life. The only thing that we had was the God of our understanding and our fellow man. Jimmy's done a great thing, and for society, for humanity. I mean, the little spark in 1953 that started now has magnified itself into a tremendous organization. It's all because that one man, very simple guy.
The first hotline, I believe, that there ever was to try to help addicts with the ideas that we had at that time. There weren't many of us, that's for sure, but we were willing to try these ideas and see if we could take some kind of a dent in the disaster that was taking place even then in the field of addiction. Things have changed a lot in the intervening years. I don't think we've gotten much better in many ways. We do know that thousands of addicts are walking the streets today that probably wouldn't have made it otherwise. This is only due to the dedication of a lot of people in the intervening years. People who are willing to put aside their own selves, their own self-will and their own ego in order to help others like ourselves. We have moved over a little closer to the house, and what you're looking at, I believe, is what originally was my roofing and later on my painting office. I used to paint and roof in the construction industry here in the valley for many years. And this is where actually the World Service Office, as we know it today, really got its start, because although there had been another World Service Office, and we'll go into detail about that later, down in Crenshaw, in one way or another we wound up in one little part of an office in the Menlo Street area of Los Angeles, in a building that belonged to suicide prevention, which was not really beneficial to our fellowship at all. We wound up moving out of there and into a 1.5 room place over a bail bondsman's office in Van Nuys, about 7 miles to the west of the house here, which didn't even have a parking place for a car, so you couldn't stay in the office more than an hour trying to do anything. We had very little literature and no facilities, honestly, to do much of anything. We used to go out and collect cardboard boxes from behind stores in order to send out the few booklets we had, and do many things like that. Cut up paper bags to wrap some tapes in. This is the area here, and particularly over to my right from where I'm sitting now. Sitting right in this place right here many years ago, and trying to organize my own thoughts in order to try to understand the program we had, in order to try to see if what I was doing was right for me as well as anybody else, and to see if I could find maybe a better direction, maybe some more positive aspects of looking at the program, since you know as well as I do how depressing some of our meetings can become. We start off on a negative note, we can carry it through. The big job, I've been very fortunate in the fact that I've always been sort of optimistic. I've always been on the upside. I'm a speeder. Thank God, so is Betty. We get along well in that regard. And I used to try to wonder, what can we do to make it any better? What can we do to improve? And I thought, from what I've learned of the program, is what I learned. And what I'm able to offer to other people is most important. Not trying to do things for other people. They're supposed to do things for themselves. Just offer the opportunity. Offer your support. Offer your empathy in particular. Empathy in particular, because it seems as though at times we forget, we get so tied into trying to do something for somebody, you know. We're not saviors, we're not teachers, we're not preachers. We're only people who have recovered our own life, our own sanity, our own health. And this is what we can offer to other people, only an example. I think we get hung up on that sometimes.